fertile ground for American investors. Our two governments have signed an agreement on the reciprocal protection of investments, which will certainly encourage them.
The year was 1982. Cameroon stood still, watching a quiet man in thick glasses take the oath of power. His name was Paul Barthélemy Biya, the soft-spoken technocrat who replaced Amadou Ahidjo after 2 decades of rule. He spoke of peace, progress, and democracy. He called it a new dawn for Cameroon. But 42 years later, that dawn never came. Today, that same man, older, slower, and almost mythical, still sits on the throne. He is the world's oldest head of state, ruling a nation where half the population has never known another leader. The question is no longer how long he has ruled, but how he has survived everything else. How did one man turn time, power, and fear into a single empire? And what happens when the ruler outlives the republic itself? This is Blackish Gold Originals. Let's deep dive. Paul Barthélemy Biya was born on February 13, 1933, in the small southern village of Mvomeka, then part of French Cameroon. He grew up under the shadow of colonial rule, where obedience was survival and silence was wisdom. Educated at some of France's most prestigious institutions, Lycée Général Leclerc in Yaoundé, and later the Institut d'études politiques in Paris, Biya returned home as one of the most polished administrators of his generation. In the 1960s, as Cameroon struggled to find its post-independent identity, Biya quickly rose through the civil service, Director of Cabinet, Secretary General at the Presidency, and eventually Prime Minister under President Amadou Ahidjo. Quiet, disciplined, and fiercely loyal, Biya was the perfect successor, at least on paper. So, when Ahidjo unexpectedly resigned in November 1982, Biya, then 49 years old, was sworn in as Cameroon's second president. The world watched with optimism. Cameroon was seen as one of Africa's few islands of stability, and Biya's soft-spoken demeanor seemed to promise democracy and reform. But within just 2 years, the dream began to sour. Ahidjo fled into exile after accusing Biya of betrayal, and what followed was not a reformist republic, but the birth of an unbroken power structure that would define Cameroon for the next 40 decades. So, what changed between the promise of reform and the politics of endurance?
Biya's secret was subtlety. Unlike the loud, gun-wielding dictators of his era, Paul Biya ruled with quiet control. He built what many Cameroonians call the illusion of peace. Elections came and went, but always on his terms. Opposition parties were legalized in 1990 under international pressure, yet no contender ever came close to breaking his grip. In the 1992 election, considered Cameroon's freest, Biya officially won with 39.9% of the vote, narrowly defeating opposition leader John Fru Ndi amid accusations of massive fraud. Since then, every election has ended the same way: Biya victorious, the opposition weakened, and the nation subdued. He mastered the politics of patience, reshuffling ministers before they grew ambitious, rewarding loyalty over innovation, and keeping the army close yet deeply divided. Each regional commander owes his position to Biya's favor and his fear. Cameroon has held 7 presidential elections since 1982. Biya has won all 7, the last in 2018 with 71.3% of the vote, despite a turnout of just 53%. But how does one man keep winning elections for over 4 decades without ever truly campaigning? For much of the last 2 decades, Paul Biya has ruled Cameroon from a distance, sometimes literally. Investigations by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project OCCRP, revealed that between 1982 and 2024, Biya has spent more than 30% of his presidency abroad, most often in Geneva, Switzerland. From his preferred suite at the Intercontinental Hotel Geneva, the Cameroonian treasury reportedly pays over $40,000 per night for his entourage's lodging and security. While he rests by Lake Geneva, unemployment at home hovers above 11%, and nearly 40% of citizens live below the poverty line. During these absences, some lasting weeks or even months, key government decisions stall, and ministers await orders from a man thousands of miles away. Yet, in Yaoundé and Douala, his portrait still looms over every office, school, and police station, a silent reminder that even when unseen, he is never gone. In a nation where power radiates from an empty chair, Paul Biya's absence has become his greatest presence. So if Biya is mostly away, who truly governs Cameroon?
Cameroon calls itself a democracy, but under Paul Biya, it functions more like a carefully managed monarchy. The same faces have occupied power for decades, bound by loyalty rather than merit. The ruling party, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, has dominated the political stage since 1985, winning every major election with margins critics say were engineered, not earned. Behind the curtain of stability lies stagnation. Nearly 40% of Cameroonians under 25 remain unemployed or underemployed in a country where the median age is barely 19. In the English-speaking Northwest and Southwest regions, a secessionist conflict has raged since 2016, claiming over 6,000 lives and displacing close to 800,000 people. Corruption corrodes every level of governance. Cameroon ranked 142nd out of 180 countries on the 2024 Transparency International Index. Public funds vanish, roads crumble, and hospitals starve of resources, yet power remains frozen at the top. To his supporters, Biya is the anchor of national unity. To his critics, he is the man who traded progress for permanence. But what happens to a nation when its leader becomes its only institution?
In 2008, Biya abolished term limits, clearing the path for life presidency. In 2018, he was re-elected again with 71% of the vote amidst widespread allegations of fraud. Now, in 2025, Cameroon stands at another crossroads. A new election has been held, but the results remain disputed. Opposition figures claim victory, while Biya's camp insists on continuity. For many Cameroonians, the question is no longer who won, but whether power can ever change hands peacefully. If Paul Biya steps down today, can Cameroon even imagine leadership without him? After 42 years in power, Paul Biya has outlived his rivals, his promises, and perhaps even his republic. He built a system that cannot exist without him, and in doing so, ensured that his legacy would be both his triumph and his tragedy. Because in Cameroon today, power does not change hands, it changes generations. Paul Biya, the man who outlived his republic. But can a republic outlive its man? Drop your response in the comments section. This has been Blackish Gold Originals. Watch the next video showing on the screen now.